Mr. and Mrs. Millennial. I'm Emily, and next to me is Brian.
Hello.
For some reason in my mind, I was going to say, we're up bright and early on this Saturday morning, but it's 11:53 a.m., so no, we're not up bright and early. In fact, it's almost not even morning time.
Also, it's overcast, so it's not bright either.
Man, I was just wrong on all accounts. I need more coffee. Well, today I thought we would talk about jobs and job hunting and interviewing. We've definitely done our share of that, and I think in this pandemic environment, I think people are doing that a lot more because they either need a second job or they had to quit their old job because of the pandemic. So we thought it was an appropriate topic to talk about.
Yeah, and we definitely have done our fair share of that over the years.
Yeah, I am over it. I think your advice on wear dark clothing to an interview is perfect because when I'm nervous, I sweat, and I really don't want to show that if I can avoid it.
Yeah, dark blue is always a safe choice for that one. So, yeah, I actually just recently had an interview, and I'd like to think I was prepared enough that it went really well. I've not heard back yet, but should this week.
It's funny, my mom asked him, she was talking to him about it, and she goes, "Oh, I bet you were nervous," and, whatever. And Brian's like, "Actually, I wasn't." And I said, "Well, I guess I was nervous for you because I just kept like pacing in the kitchen. I could not sit still. But I mean, I guess that's good that you weren't nervous because that didn't affect your interview."
Yeah, yeah, and normally I would be, but I was extra prepared for this one, and I found that helped out a lot.
What does my dad say? Piss poor planning leads to piss poor performance. So you definitely were on the opposite end of that.
But yeah, interviewing, some things never change about lot. Like some of the questions that are asked are just ridiculous.
Did you get asked, if you could be any animal, what animal would you be?
I did not, but
Okay.
I've been asked very similar questions to that in the past, where it's like, what exactly do you expect to say about that? Like,
Like, honestly, if an interviewer asked me that question, the first thing that would come to mind is, well, my animal would be a cat because I'm easily scared. But like, you don't want to say that in an interview, so I don't know what to do
yeah,
about that.
yeah. Honestly, I think it's kind of a learning experience for the interviewee because you get to see what questions are the interviewers asking, and you can kind of like judge them a little based on that. And so, like, I can ask them a question about what do you like about your job, and if they don't have anything to say, it's very telling. It's like, oh, great, I don't want to work there now.
Well, I just thought of something that's an interesting component. Many job interviews these days, at least for office jobs, is they do virtual interviews. And before you would obviously go into the building and meet with someone, you might have a quick little phone interview beforehand, but you would meet with them in person eventually. And I think you can gather a lot of information from meeting a potential employer in person. I interviewed at this one company. I can't even remember what they were called, but they were some like fence company, I think. And I was going to be doing some writing job for them. And I went in and I was immediately thinking, oh, I'm not taking this job 100% because the vibe I got from the office was just terrible. Like, this is going to be a terrible job to work for. It's not going to be worth the money. I'm going to stick around for the interview and just kind of see what's what. But I automatically knew I was never going to take that job just from being in the building alone.
Well, a lot of communication is body language, is
Mm-hmm.
non-spoken. And you miss all of that when you're not there in person with the person. I mean, you can get a tiny bit from a video interview, but my recent interview was a phone interview, and so I can get no body language from them. I couldn't get a read on them exactly, so it's very different to not be doing in-person interviews.
Yeah, it absolutely eliminates, because even if you have a Zoom interview where you can see the person and you can see their body language, it's not the same as being in person and getting a read on them that way.
hmm
Happy that we have that, though. I mean, that's great that we can still have that option, though. As weird as it is to not be going in person, at least we have options for interviews.
Yeah. Well, personally, I'd think that it'd be better to just have a very long table so everyone stays away from each other and talk that way. Sit on
hmm
opposite ends of the conference table, but everybody's got to do what they want to, so.
Like one of those, like, rich person's dining room table
Yeah,
where it like it's like a football field now.
exactly.
Everyone's got to talk in a megaphone so you can be heard across the table. least it would be interesting. Something you've never done before, I guess.
Right? It would be interesting. It'd be very disarming to the interviewee at the same time.
Yes. Because I'm sure they'd get that one person that doesn't know how a megaphone works and they would just scream into it, like talk really loudly. It's like, no, you don't need to do that. The tool does it for you.
Well, the other fun thing I've noticed is that a lot of job posts as well are, well, some of them are updating to take COVID into account. So they're saying things like, this job can be done by telework, when they wouldn't
Mhm.
ordinarily include that in the job posting.
Or even jobs that can't be done telework, like childcare jobs, they're saying actively hiring during
Hmm.
COVID to make it clear you can apply here. It's okay.
Well, on the other side of that, though, there's a fair number of job postings that have not changed due to COVID. And so you look at the
Interesting.
job posting and you're like, well, how exactly does this work? You say you spend all your time in the office or 75% of it traveling. It's like, how does that work these days? You know?
Right. Well, and it's one of those things where if you don't need to apply for a job or the job that you currently have is already adapted to the pandemic, you wouldn't think about
Hmm.
that. But when you're job hunting, you're like, wait a minute, how does this work? I don't know how to deal with
Hmm.
this.
And of course, you get the old favorites like the starting salary job that wants a master's degree, or the entry level job that wants you to have 10 years of experience, or, yeah, those are always good.
Well, that's why I had my sister apply to be a substitute teacher pre-pandemic because she just graduated college back in December with a degree in psychology, and she has some work experience. But fresh out of college, you don't have unless you've worked since you're 15, you don't have nearly the amount of job experience someone in their 30s has. And I told her, I said, you just need a clear background check and a bachelor's degree to be a substitute teacher, which she has both of those things, and she did get hired, unfortunately, right before the
Hmm.
school district shut down, which is unfortunate. But I told her, I said, it's good money. It's not guaranteed work, but from my experience, you do get a lot of work in that job and they will hire you. You'll get plenty of work experience to put on your resume for your next job.
Hmm.
Interestingly enough, though, you don't interview for that job.
Really?
I applied. I had to wait for my references to fill out this questionnaire about me, and I was hired. I was told that I had the job, and then I went in a week or so later to get my fingerprints, go over the paperwork that they sent me that I had to fill out, and get my badge picture taken. And then maybe another week later, 2 weeks later, I went in for orientation.
Hmm. Interesting.
And I think it's because number one, obviously they do the background check to make sure you're, okay to work with children. And they're just, at least my school district is so desperate for substitutes. I think that they think, okay, if you're a good person and your references check out, you're good.
Well, and it's not guaranteed work either, so I can see why they might be a
Right.
little more lax on the requirements there.
I was definitely happy about that because at the time I was working in Seattle, and by working in Seattle, I mean I worked a 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. shift, and I was gone from, I want to say, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. because commuting to Seattle is terrible especially if you live in Puyallup, and it could be about a 40-minute drive on a good day, let alone what it is during rush hour and taking public transportation and whatnot. And I was thinking, I want this substitute job so badly, but if they ask for an interview, I'm going to have to find a substitute for me because I worked at a daycare, and it's going to be a whole scheduling nightmare. But it wasn't,
Hmm.
fortunately. I was very happy about that.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of other people are trying to move out of Seattle as well, because as far
Hmm.
as like real estate goes, I've seen a lot of houses going on sale in Seattle. And not a ton of sales themselves happening though, so I think that's a lot of people trying to leave because they're realizing they don't need to live in Seattle to work in Seattle because they can telecommute.
Absolutely.
And also, it's just not worth it to live in Seattle a lot of the time. Unless you have a high paying job, then.
Well, we live in Puyallup, and we're referred to as a bedroom community because a lot of families live here and commute elsewhere. Like my dad commutes to Renton. At least he used to. He works from home now. But
Hmm.
yeah, if a lot of these jobs prove that they can be done through telework, there's no need to either live in Seattle, number one, or drive into Seattle when you can just do it from the comfort of your home. And honestly, it makes your day shorter because you don't have to commute at all. You go from your bedroom to your office. That's it.
When you save a ton of money too, because everything in Seattle is super expensive.
That's what I told Brian. For me as a substitute, it's not guaranteed that I can work this job again just because a lot of schools are still doing online learning right now. And I told him, I said, if I have to look for another job, it's going to be sad, but fine, I'll do it. But I'm not working in Seattle because I was making 15 an hour at my daycare job. And between the cost of the light rail and the cost of gas, and my car gets good mileage, it wasn't worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It'd have to be like 20 an hour for me to even consider it.
Yeah, I actually used to work in Seattle myself and would take the bus and wake up at 5 every morning to catch my 5:30
Yeah.
bus to go in the morning. And yeah, it's just not worth it.
Well, I would pack my backpack with things that I had to do that day so I could just make use of me being on the light rail because I drove to the light rail station, but then I took the light rail, which is like, for those of you who aren't from Washington, it's pretty much like a subway, but above ground. And I would just do what I could on the light rail because when I got home, it was eat dinner, maybe watch a little bit of TV with my husband and go to bed because I had to be up at 5:30, 6 o'clock. There
Mm-hmm.
was no time for anything but commuting and work.
Yeah, for myself, I actually read a lot of books when I was riding the bus, so that was nice, but I still wouldn't go back to doing it.
I trained my body to sleep the right way because I took the longest light rail route because I took it from the very southernmost station to the northernmost station. And I didn't want to sleep the whole way because that was too long and it would put me in a deeper sleep and potentially not get off the light rail when I should. So I knew which stop I could start dozing. And then I was still aware of my surroundings, but I was giving my body a little bit of a rest. And then I'd wake up when it was time to get off at the University of Washington station. But I trained my body to do that so I could get a little bit of sleep on the way there.
Yeah, I did something similar on the bus. I would nap for a certain amount of time when I got on, and my body was just used to waking up right around the time I
Hmm.
had to leave.
Exactly.
The other weird thing I observed, and I don't know if it was the same on the light rail, but on the bus there's almost like a culture for the people who ride
Hmm.
the bus. Like there's certain forms of etiquette to follow and certain things you do and don't do, and it's almost its own little microculture.
Absolutely. Everyone has, well, most people follow the etiquette of the light rail. They would help people who had to get out during the middle stops, which is the most crowded, form a pass so they could get off at their stop. And people would have their laptops out, but they would be in their own little bubble, so they're not disturbing others. And it was just fascinating to observe that because before this Seattle job, I didn't really have to commute anywhere to that extent. I had jobs in Puyallup. Auburn was, I think, the furthest one away. And for me, that was, I don't know, 25 minutes in my car by myself. So it was interesting to see that.
Yeah, it's definitely something I think people should do at least once in their life. Like young people who are starting out working should ride the bus or the tram or light rail at least a couple times just to experience the ride.
Well, everyone should have frustrating commuting stories. What else do you share
Yeah,
at parties?
gives us all a common bonding experience.
Yeah, because even if you have a good day commuting, or you're my dad, because my dad loves to take the sounder,
Hmm.
most people don't like commuting. So,
Yeah, the best days on the bus are still days when you would rather not have taken the bus.
right, right. Well, and it's money you have to spend, and you have to. I mean, I'm not a grouchy person, but at 7 a.m., I don't want to be dealing with people. I really don't. I
Hmm.
just want to be in my own bubble, drinking my coffee, trying to get myself psyched up for the day.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, a lot of places in Seattle do subsidize workers for like
Mhm.
bus and light rail and things like
They
that.
do.
So you can save a little money depending on how good of an employer you have, but
Well, and also they also want to encourage because Seattle's they like to promote environmentalism, and so they're like, okay, cool, you're taking public transport. We want to encourage this.
yes, but at the same time, Seattle's also the ones who installed the HOV lane and then put a toll on it
I
too.
didn't say they were
It's like,
perfect.
are are you using the carrot or the stick here? What's going on?
Well, when I started my subbing job, obviously I work with the Puyallup School District where I live, and the furthest away school is, God, I want to say 15 minutes if I'm hitting all the lights wrong. And so my first subbing job, I had to work at a school that was 5 minutes away, 10 minutes away, and I was like, wow. This is amazing because even when I'm subbing at a junior high or a high school, which starts earlier than an elementary school, I still wasn't getting up any earlier than 6:30, and that was on a rare day. Usually I didn't have to get up till after 7. So I was like, this is perfect. I don't have to get up at the butt crack of dawn, and I don't have to deal with massive commuting issues.
Yeah, a good commute definitely does help out a lot.
Yes. Well, all I can say is my fingers are crossed for you, Brian. I think you nailed the interview. We talked about it yesterday, and I said if worst comes to worst and he doesn't get this job, it's only because there was someone with more experience, because I think he interviewed the best that he could. He passed it.
Well, I appreciate that, and we should find out sometime next week. They said Friday at the latest, so
Yeah,
then we'll know.
by our next podcast, we should have an answer. So, yeah, feel free to follow us. We're on most social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and obviously YouTube. And so feel free to give us a like and a follow, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.